It was just after my junior WAEC examinations when my parents informed me that I would be spending the long 3 months holiday with my aunts, who lived in Badagry, Lagos State. My younger brother had overheard their conversation and rushed to tell me before they did. So, when my mother finally sat me down to break the news, my excitement had already begun to build. I jumped, screaming in delight, abandoning my food entirely. Lagos had always been a place I longed to visit. I had read about its chaotic streets, the ever busy roads, and the fast paced life. Now, I would finally experience it for myself. I dashed into the street to inform my friends of the great news. They shared in my joy, except for Raphael, who sulked because we had placed a bet on who would visit Lagos first. I had won, but at that moment, the thrill of the trip mattered more than the victory. That evening, my mother brought out my bag and began packing my belongings. She then informed me that I would first travel to Imo State to meet my uncle, who would accompany me on the journey to Lagos. People always talked about how thrilling night journeys could be, despite the risk. I wanted to experience it all: the vast, open roads at night, the eerie silence interrupted by the occasional honk of a passing truck, and the feeling of moving forward into the unknown. That night, I couldn't sleep. My mind raced with questions. How would my journey be? Would I make new friends? Would my aunt allow me play football? Would I visit the bar beach? All these questions and more kept racing through my mind. Since Badagry bordered Cotonou, would I get the chance to visit the Benin Republic? Who would help Mama in her shop while I was away? The thoughts swirled in my head, making me restless. Morning came, and my parents prayed for journey mercies before taking me to the park where I was to meet my uncle Wellington. They reminded me to be disciplined and careful in Lagos, a city where crime lurked in every corner. I nodded obediently. That evening in Owerri, my uncle and I went to the Chisco bus terminal to purchase our tickets. The terminal buzzed with activity. Travelers haggled over fares, vendors sold last-minute travel necessities, and conductors shouted the names of destinations. Finally, we boarded and settled in our seats. My heart pounded with anticipation. I whispered a prayer as the bus pulled out of the terminal, its powerful headlights slicing through the night. The journey started smoothly. The air inside the bus was cool, the engine humming steadily as the city lights faded behind us. Along the way, we passed sleepy towns with dimly lit roadside shops, some still open for last-minute customers. At intervals, police and military checkpoints forced the bus to slow down. Flashlights pierced through the windows, momentarily illuminating the drowsy passengers. After brief exchanges with the driver, we were waved on. A few hours in, we hit a rough patch of road. The smooth ride turned into a series of jolts and bumps. Some passengers grumbled, while others simply shifted in their seats and went back to sleep. The driver, clearly experienced, navigated through with ease. At a rest stop, the bus pulled into a cluster of small eateries and stalls catering to night travelers. The doors hissed open, and a few passengers stepped out to stretch. Vendors hurriedly approached, selling bottled water, roasted corn, and sizzling suya. I remained in my seat, watching with curiosity. Back on the road, the night seemed endless, an infinite stretch of darkness interrupted only by the occasional headlights of passing vehicles. Slowly, my eyelids grew heavy and I drifted into a light sleep. Hours later, a faint glow appeared on the horizon. The unmistakable lights of Lagos. The city emerged from the darkness, its streets alive even in the early hours. The once empty roads were now bustling with trucks, late-night traders, and the ever-present yellow downfall buses, weaving through like restless spirits. By the time we arrived at the terminal, the city was fully awake, vibrating with energy. I stepped out, stretching my cramped limbs, and was immediately hit by the humid embrace of Lagos. The air smelled of exhaust fumes, fried street food, and the ocean somewhere in the distance. The city was everything I had imagined, chaotic, fast, and loud. My uncle and I took a taxi to my aunt's house in Badagry. I expected her to be at the door, arms open and welcome, but she wasn't there. She works for a courier service in Benin Republic. My uncle explained as we approached the house, she won't be back until morning. Instead, we were received by her neighbor, a woman in her mid-30s. She smiled at me, too long, too intently. Her gaze made me uneasy. There was something strange about the way she looked at me, her eyes sweeping over me in a way I didn't understand at the time. I quickly lowered my head, pretending not to notice. That night, I slept in my aunt's small living room. The ceiling fan spun lazily, barely stirring the humid air. My dreams were restless, haunted by the unfamiliarity of my new surroundings. Morning came, and with it, the sound of the front door opening. My aunt had arrived. She pulled me into a tight hug. "My boy, you are finally here," she beamed, ruffling my hair. She wasted no time in preparing breakfast, yam sauce, thick and fragrant, filling the room with a delicious aroma. We ate together, and she asked about my journey, nodding approvingly as I recounted the details. As the day went on, she surprised me with a football. My heart leaped with joy. "Thank you, Auntie," I shouted, holding the ball like a precious treasure. She laughed. "You can play, but don't go too far," she warned. The Oro festival is going on, and strangers, especially children, shouldn't be caught outside at certain hours. Still, my aunt's next words made me grin. "This weekend, I'll take you to the beach," she promised. I couldn't wait. A few days after my uncle returned to Aba, my aunt resumed her night shifts at work, leaving me alone in the house. It was on one of those evenings that Motunde, my aunt's favorite neighbor, knocked on the door with a warm smile and a steaming plate of food. Motunde was a beautiful woman in her early 40s. Despite her age, she carried herself with youthful elegance. She was unmarried, though rumors swirled about past relationships. She worked as a government official, but her job seemed flexible. She went to work whenever she pleased. Some days, she was dressed in formal attire, heading out in the morning like other civil servants. Other times she remained home, lounging in simple gowns or bubbles, chatting with her neighbors or tending to her plants. Everyone liked her, especially my aunt. She always spoke highly of Mutunde, calling her a good woman and a trustworthy friend. That night, however, I would learn that appearances could be deceiving. I welcomed her in, not thinking much of it. She placed the food on the table, flashing a smile. "I made extra," she said. "Thought you might be hungry." I thanked her and dug into the meal. It was delicious, rich with spices and flavors that reminded me of home. She sat close, watching me eat, her eyes studying me in a way that made me uneasy. After I finished, she reached for my hands, her fingers cool and soft. "You're such a fine young man," she murmured. "So handsome, so grown." Her voice was thick, laced with something I couldn't understand. My skin prickled as she held my hands longer than necessary. "If you ever need anything at all," she whispered, her eyes locked onto mine, "just ask me." I swallowed hard, feeling a strange tension in the air. Then she let go and stood, brushing imaginary dust off her dress. "I'll come by again tomorrow," she said casually. "Your aunt won't be home, so I'll keep you company." With that, she left. The next morning, as my aunt was preparing for work, I wanted to say something about her beloved neighbor that made me uncomfortable. How there was something odd about her lingering touch and the way she looked at me. But I hesitated. What if she didn't believe me? What if I was overreacting? So I said nothing. And by nightfall, I would regret it. The house was quiet, my aunt had left for her shift, and the neighborhood had settled into the peaceful hum of the night. I had just finished watching television when I heard a soft knock at the door. I knew who it was before I even opened it. Motunde stood there, dressed in a short, silky gown that hugged her curves. The dim corridor light cast a soft glow on her smooth, brown skin. She smelled good, too good. A blend of perfume and something else, something sweet and intoxicating. In her hands, she held a small bag filled with DVD film disc. "I brought some movies," she said, smiling as she stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. "I know how lonely it can get at night." She settled onto the couch with an ease that suggested she belonged there. Other neighbors wouldn't suspect anything. Motunde was my aunt's closest friend after all. It was normal for her to drop by. No one would question why she was in the house with me alone. She set the DVDs on the table and turned to me, her smile widening. "Come sit," she said, patting the space beside her. I hesitated, then slowly moved to the couch, my body stiff with unease. The air in the room felt different, heavier, warmer. And as the night stretched on, I would come to realize that this was a night I would never forget. Motunde stepped inside with a knowing smile, her presence filling the room like a slow-moving shadow. The door clicked shut behind her, the lock sliding into place. I watched as she moved towards the windows, her hands drawing the curtains closed, shutting out the dim glow of the street lights. A strange, heavy stillness settled in the air. She turned to me, her smile widening. No one would disturb us now. I swallowed, my palms damp. She placed a small stack of DVDs on the table, sifting through them before selecting one. The television screen flickered, and soon images of beautiful women, their bodies entangled with men, filled the room. I stiffened. I had never seen anything like this before. Not fully, not with a woman old enough to be my mother sitting so close beside me. Motunde chuckled softly. Relax, she murmured, brushing my arm. This is what adults enjoy. Her fingers trailed down my wrist, light and teasing. I pulled away slightly, but she followed, her hand finding my knee. Come sit here, she whispered, patting her lap. I'm fine, I said quickly, my voice uneven. She sighed dramatically. You're acting like a small boy. Or are you not a man yet? The question cut through me. I had always wanted to prove myself to my classmates, to Nnenna, to anyone who ever doubted me. She leaned in, her breath warm against my ear. Are you a virgin? I swallowed hard. She chuckled knowingly. I can help you. You'll be a real man after tonight. No one will bully you again. Something inside me wavered. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to be respected. And if this was what made a man, then maybe. Her hand slid up my thighs, her touch slow, deliberate. My breath caught. My body reacted, though my mind screamed that this was wrong. I shifted uncomfortably. Stop, I muttered, but she didn't. Her fingers danced over my skin. Her voice was a soft whisper of promises. You like it, she said. Just trust me. She stroked my hard penis on her vagina while she screamed. The volume of the TV rose suddenly, drowning out the world outside. The moans from the screen filled the room, mingling with the quickening beat of my heart. I felt trapped by her touch, by the warmth in my stomach, by the thick, dizzying scent of her perfume. She stroked me some more, her touch both foreign and frightening. My body betrayed me, responding in ways I didn't understand. See, she cooed. It feels good, doesn't it? I squeezed my eyes shut. Then something changed. The rhythm of her movements, she held my cock, had it mouthful as she stroked intermittently. The heat of her skin against mine, a deep, unfamiliar pressure built inside me. And before I could understand what was happening, I exploded right inside her mouth. My chest rose and fell rapidly. Shame coiled in my guts. Tears burned down the back of my eyes. Motunde pulled me close, running her fingers through my hair. Shh, 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 shh. You're a man now, she murmured. But I didn't feel like a man. I felt ruined. As I lay there, my body trembling, I realized this was only the beginning. The nightmares came first. Dark, shifting shadows, whispers in the night, a touch that burned my skin. I woke up gasping, drenched in sweat, my heart pounding against my ribs. But the worst part wasn't the dreams. The worst part was that when I opened my eyes, the nightmare was still there. Motunde didn't stop. And one night, she didn't come alone. I had heard the soft knock, The familiar signal that sent my stomach twisting into knots. My aunt was at work and I was alone again. But when I opened the door, there were two of them. Motunde stood there smiling as always, but beside her was another woman, slightly younger, slimmer, her eyes gleaming with something that made my skin crawl. "This is my friend," Motunde said, softly stepping inside as if she belonged there. "Her name is Bisi." I didn't move. I couldn't. Bisi's gaze roamed over me, slow and assessing. "He's even cuter than you said," she murmured, her voice sickeningly sweet. Something inside me screamed to run, to fight, to do anything but stand there like a trapped animal. But I had already learned that resistance was useless. So I did what I always did. I let it happen. I was made to satisfy two women. It was really too much for me. After that night, I stopped sleeping properly. Even when I closed my eyes, the darkness was no longer a place of rest. It was a place of fear, of suffocating silence. The days blurred together. I barely spoke. I stopped eating as much, even Auntie noticed. "You've lost weight," she frowned one morning, touching my cheek. "Are you feeling sick?" I wanted to scream that yes, I was sick. Sick of the night, sick of the fear, sick of the fact that she didn't know, that she couldn't see what was happening right under her nose. But I just shook my head. "I'm fine, Auntie." She sighed, brushing my hair back. "Maybe you just miss home. Don't worry, we'll go to the beach this weekend." The beach! Something that once excited me now felt meaningless. Nothing felt real anymore. By the time the holidays ended and I returned home, I wasn't the same boy who had left. My mother hugged me, but I barely responded. My father asked about my trip and I mumbled something about Lagos being fine. I avoided my younger brother, avoided my friends, and most of all, I avoided mirrors. I couldn't stand the sight of myself. School resumed and I tried to slip back into normalcy, but the memories clung to me like a second skin. I walked the halls feeling like an imposter, pretending to be the boy I was before, but that boy was gone. I kept waiting for someone to notice, for a teacher to pull me aside, for my mother to ask the right questions, for anyone, just anyone, to see the invisible wounds I carried. But no one did. The world kept moving, and I was left alone with the silence. Years passed, I grew up, but the past never left me. I avoided intimacy, flinched when women touched me too suddenly. I smiled when I had to, laughed when unexpected, but inside there was always a hole, something hollow, something broken. I didn't trust easily, didn't let anyone too close, and relationships? Impossible. Because how could I love when I had never even learned what love was supposed to be? How could I be with someone when my body still remembered hands I never wanted? Sometimes I still heard Motunde's voice in my head. "You're a man now." But I didn't feel like a man. I felt like a shadow, a ghost of the boy I used to be, the first step towards healing. It took years before I finally spoke about it, before I gathered the courage to say the words out loud. It wasn't easy. The shame still wrapped around me like chains, the fear of judgment thick in my throat. But when I finally let the truth slip from my lips, something shifted. The weight wasn't gone, but it was lighter. And for the first time, I realized I wasn't alone. There were others like me, other boys, other men, victims who had been told that they couldn't be victims, survivors who had carried their pain in silence. I wasn't alone. And maybe, just maybe, I didn't have to be silent anymore. I have to speak out to share our collective stories. So if you're out there and you're passing through a thing or two like this, do not hesitate to speak out.